Hey all, and welcome to a brand new series called Engines of Steam and Steel. I've decided to branch out into a new Engines of series based on the Steam and Steel locomotives, since I've been kinda dry on content for a while now, between Engines of Summer Wales episodes, so I decided why not make a new series on Steam and Steel. I know some of you have asked if I would make a series, and originally I said no, since I felt like there was little to no lore to talk about, but I've changed my mind and learned there is some lore on the game, albeit very little. So don't expect these to be as in-depth or as long as Engines of Summer Wales. We will begin our journey talking about the KdNS A0, the cheapest engine to buy in game and the smallest engine as well. We'll be going through its life, its Steam and Steel lore, its development and in-game life, and possible IRL bases. So, similar to Engines of Summer Wales, but as stated, not as in-depth. Well, with that out of the way, let's begin the first episode of Engines of Steam and Steel. The KdNS A0 class would begin life in 1843, being built originally as a competitor to the RSR A class, which had not yet entered the Ruhr region of Germany. The RSR A class would eventually reach the region, but not before the A0 caused some trouble with an order. The Glenbook Logging Company originally ordered 7 RSR A classes, however due to a mix-up they would instead get A0 classes from KdNS, which proved unsuitable for logging operations. This would lead to a high-profile lawsuit between KdNS, RSR, I think, and Glenbook Logging, which got so out of control the local government would be forced to step in, restricting letter designations and requiring a hefty fee to register any new ones. RSR, being the bigger company, would quickly snatch up many of the letter designations, while KdNS would have to reuse previous designations they had on similar classes. The KdNS A0 is a 420 locomotive, having 4 pilot wheels, 2 driver wheels, and no trailing wheels. This type of classification is known as a Jervis type, named after John B. Jervis, a civil engineer who was an early pioneer for American railroads, supervising the construction of 5 of the earliest railroads in the US, along with creating the DeWitt Clinton steam locomotive. The first engine to use the Jervis wheel arrangement would be Experiment, built for the Mohawk and Hudson Railroad in 1832. It would also be the first locomotive with a swiveling bogie. The A0 is a tender locomotive, meaning it requires a tender to operate as it has no onboard coal bunker. The A0 is around 22 to 25 feet long, 5 to 6 feet wide, and 10 to 14 feet tall. The locomotive has a weight of 9.1 tons, max power of 11,737, and a top speed of 26. The locomotive costs $5,114 stock, while the Trainworks cuts this cost down to $4,101. The A0 is equipped with a higher pitched whistle. Here are some samples. The A0 would be developed about a day before its official release on April 1st, 2024, as part of the April Fool's update, alongside the H2. The A0 on release was the smallest engine in game, being smaller than the A1 class. This also coincided with the biggest engine being released at the time, being the H2. The A0 can commonly be seen on many early game saves, being a decent starting engine. It is also the starter engine for Misty Summit. The A0 has a few real-life bases due to the commonality of 420 locomotives. The first and most likely candidate is the NSTB Stedletz locomotive, built for the KK Northern State Railway in 1842 by the Wiener Neustalter Lokomotivfabrik. These 420s would be the first engines built for the State Railway, with 6 being built in total. They would work on the State Railway until it was sold to the Austrian-Hungarian State Railway Society in 1855, where they would be renumbered to 2 to 7. They would all be withdrawn and scrapped before 1873. Another possible basis is Lafayette, a 420 locomotive built in the US for the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad. Constructed by the Norris Locomotive Works in 1837, this engine would be the first externally built engine for the B&O Railroad, along with being the first horizontal boiler engine for the railroad. The original engine would be scrapped around the 1850s or 60s, but a replica would be constructed in 1927 at the Montclair Workshops for the Fair of the Iron Horse, bearing the name William Galloway. It would go to several other fairs, such as the Chicago and New York World's Fair and the Chicago Railroad Fair. The engine would eventually end up at the National Museum of Railroad History and Innovation, or the B&O Railroad Museum, where it sits on display inside the main roundhouse. well, that's about the end of this first episode of Engines of Steam and Steel. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this new series. I'm planning to run this every other month between Engines of Summer Wales episodes, so as to not keep you guys waiting for new Engines of episodes. Anyway, join me next time when I talk about the A1 and A2 class. Besides that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all later. Have a great day.